Winston Churchill is known as one of the most iconic figures in history, especially for his leadership during World War II. But what many don't know is that his military career almost came to a crashing halt in World War I during the infamous Battle of Gallipoli. This event, a monumental failure, would have a lasting impact on Churchill's future, shaping his career and his legacy in ways few expected. This is the story of how one man's greatest failure was the architect of his later success. In 1915, Churchill was serving as the First Lord of the Admiralty. He was a man of big ideas, and he believed that the key to defeating the Central Powers, Germany and Austria-Hungary, wasn't just more trench warfare on the Western Front. He wanted to shake things up with a bold strategy, an attack on the Ottoman Empire through Gallipoli. He believed that opening up a new front in the Ottoman-controlled Dardanelles Strait would break the deadlock of the war. The idea was to use a naval assault to clear the way for an invasion of the Gallipoli Peninsula, weakening the Ottoman Empire and giving the Allies an advantage. In Churchill's eyes, it was a brilliant plan, one that could change the course of the war in favor of the Allies. But there was one huge problem. It didn't go as planned. The naval attack in February 1915 failed miserably. The fleet of British and French ships attempted to force their way through the Dardanelles, but they were met with intense resistance from the Ottoman defenders, who had laid mines and set up fortifications. The Royal Navy's ships were damaged and the offensive stalled. But Churchill, ever the optimist, wasn't ready to give up just yet. He believed the strategy could still work if combined with a land assault. So, in April 1915, Allied forces, mainly British, Australian and New Zealand Anzac troops, landed at Gallipoli, hoping to capture key positions and pave the way for victory. Instead, they found themselves in a deadly quagmire. The terrain was harsh, the troops unprepared, and the Ottoman defenders, led by Mustafa Kemal, later known as Ataturk, were formidable. The land campaign became bogged down in brutal trench warfare, with heavy casualties on both sides. The Allies, unable to break through, faced a humiliating defeat. By early 1916, the Gallipoli campaign was officially considered a disaster. The Allies suffered more than 250,000 casualties, and there was no sign of victory. The failure was a blow not only to the Allied cause, but also to Churchill's career. As the architect of the campaign, Churchill was blamed for its failure, despite the fact that the land forces were under different commanders. In May 1915, Churchill resigned from his position as First Lord of the Admiralty. For a man who had been so confident in his vision, the blow was devastating. His career seemed to be over before it had truly begun. Many thought that Gallipoli had effectively ended Churchill's political future. But Churchill was not the type to give up easily. After resigning from the Admiralty, he took a step away from politics and returned to active military service. He even fought on the Western Front as a lieutenant colonel with the Royal Scots Fusiliers. It was an attempt to regain some of his credibility, but more importantly, it was a chance to learn from his mistakes. Churchill later reflected on Gallipoli, acknowledging that the campaign had been a humbling experience. He had underestimated the strength of the Ottoman defences, and he had failed to account for the challenges of amphibious warfare. The failure taught him lessons that would stay with him for the rest of his life, especially about the human cost of war and the importance of thorough planning. It wasn't long before Churchill was back in the political arena. By the early 1920s, he was serving as Chancellor of the Exchequer, and though his political career had been damaged, it was far from finished. He remained a key figure in British politics, and in the 1930s he began to warn of the rising threat of Nazi Germany, even when many in Britain were in denial. And then came World War II. As Prime Minister, Churchill rose to become one of the most revered leaders in history, known for his determination, his speeches, and his ability to inspire Britain during its darkest hour. Because he wasn't afraid of dark times. He'd been through his own. He had learned from his previous mistakes, and his leadership during the war became legendary. Gallipoli was a failure, but it wasn't the end of Churchill's career. It was, in fact, a pivotal turning point. The experience humbled him, shaped his military thinking, and ultimately made him a better leader. The lessons he learned in the trenches of Gallipoli helped prepare him for the tough decisions he would face during World War II. Churchill's resilience in the face of failure, his ability to adapt and learn from his mistakes, and his eventual rise to greatness are part of what makes his story so remarkable. Winston Churchill once said, "Success is not final, failure is not fatal. It is the courage to continue that counts." Gallipoli may have been one of the darkest chapters of his career, but it was also one of the defining moments that helped shape him into the leader who would inspire the world in the years to come. If you liked this video, don't be afraid to comment and make sure to subscribe to watch more of our videos.